Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I'm Clara Galan, Content Marketing Manager and former teacher here at Remind, and I'm super excited to kick off our very first Teacher Tip Tuesday. For those of you who are just tuning in, Teacher Tip Tuesday is a 5-minute professional development series in which we find teachers from around the world to discuss innovative classroom practices and communication strategies and share their ideas with the Global Professional Learning Network. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by our first interviewee, Miss Kyleigh Williams, third grade teacher at John Swett Elementary School in Martinez, California. So hi, Kyleigh. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Clara. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your classroom. How long have you been teaching third grade at John Swett?
This is actually my first year teaching at third grade at John Swett, but I've been at John Swett for 3 years, and my class is amazing. We are the Pirates, so everything in my classroom is pirate themed, and they absolutely love it, and we have so much fun with it.
Awesome. So why don't you share what's one innovative practice or strategy that you've been implementing in your classroom lately?
Well, my class is very smart. They really are into technology. I don't think I've ever seen a group of kids who has understood technology as well as they have. And so every morning, I actually facilitate more than teach. When we first started at the beginning of the school year, all of my students took a student learning test, and so they had to discover what kind of learner they were. And most of my students were actually hands-on learners. So what I've been doing with them is giving them more options, and so in one corner of the room you will see students on their netbooks doing extra math for practice, and then you will see other students rehearsing for presentations using the iPads recording each other. Then you'll see me with a small group in the back manipulating numbers, doing up to 10 hundred thousands and all kinds of crazy math stuff, and then you'll see kids buddy reading. So you come into my classroom in the morning and you can actually see the students doing different things, and so my biggest thing was trying to discover that becoming a facilitator rather than a teacher at all costs could be really beneficial for the students.
I love that idea of real student-driven learning and student-centered learning, and I love that they're able to try out different things in the classroom. So that idea of different stations, do you have that running periodically throughout the day, or is that kind of just when they first come in the morning?
I try to keep the students having a choice about having their own choice because it makes them more engaged in the learning. So during math time, they are invited to choose to do whichever math game they want to do once we're done with our hands-on focus. So throughout the day, you will see in my class a lot of different students doing different things, but all of them are on task and actually working and learning together, because sometimes students teaching each other is the best way for them to learn.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I've seen it in my own teaching as well, that when they learn from, a peer, it's really helpful, especially for writing or different math strategies. So thanks so much for sharing. I know that you've been using Remind in your classroom frequently to connect with parents. So what's one way that you've been using it that's made a real impact on your classroom?
Well, I love how I can just remind parents, like, oh, hey, don't forget tomorrow I'm putting in the book order, or Friday is the play. But what I really like doing is sometimes my students say the most hilarious things I think I've ever heard. So I will do a student quote and send it out to all the parents, and they have to guess it was their kid or not. And I like that because a lot of times families go home and they're so, everyone's on their phone or doing video games or homework in separate areas, that it helps start a conversation between the parents and the student. Like, oh, hey, I got a message from Miss Williams today. Were you the one who said, Miss Williams, I think something's wrong. My brain is hurting because I'm getting so smart. So it just really starts a fun conversation, and then it gets all the students talking to their families.
I absolutely love that, and it's true that Remind really helps to kind of bridge that connection between the classroom and home. Even when parents are, at work or in transit, and they might not be checking their email all day, but they're certainly checking their phones. So it seems like it's a really helpful strategy. Is there any particular story that you'd like to share in which a parent has talked to you about a specific message that you've sent home?
One of my students comes up with quotes. They always want to be quoted because I use Twitter a lot. So they always want to see my Twitter feed to see if their quote got on Twitter. So I said, okay, I'm going to do your quote, but I'm not going to put it on Twitter. And they're like, okay, where are you going to put it? And so I said, you have to ask your parents. So one of my students said, Miss Williams, I wish math would grow up and solve its own problems. And so I thought that was so cute, so I sent it out on Remind. The next day, the student comes in, and she's like, Miss Williams, what was that thing you did? You sent my mom a text? I'm like, no, I sent everyone in our class, like all the parents, a message to get a conversation going. And she's like, oh, man, I think I'm famous now.
That's so great. That sounds like a perfect quote for social media, too. I'm going to have to share that out on our Facebook. I'm sure teachers would love it. Well, thank you, Kyleigh, for joining us tonight. How can those who are tuning in get in touch with you on Twitter?
My Twitter feed is Miss Kyleigh Williams, as in MSKY, and then Williams, which is a lot easier to spell.
Great, and thank you again. Thanks again for all of those who tuned in tonight. If you have questions about this interview, you can tweet at us at RemindHQ or on Facebook, so facebook.com/RemindHQ, and include the hashtag TeachTues, so that's TeachTues. And if you'd like to be interviewed and have your classroom featured, be sure to get in touch. So I'm Kyleigh Galan. On Twitter, I'm at Miss Kyleigh Galan. I'm signing off from Remind headquarters in San Francisco. Have a good night.